a general discussion about mental health. It is not to be interpreted as specific advice for a specific situation. Every situation is unique and requires advice to be tailored and adapted to that situation. All information in this broadcast is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for professional mental health services. If you or a loved one are experiencing mental health distress, please speak to a licensed professional in your area.
It's time to shine that light that lives in you. Living well. It's not too late to change. It's time to be the change. Living well. It's time to shine that light that lives in you. Living well. It's not too late to change. It's time to be the change.
Living well takes a community. So remember to like and subscribe, and don't forget to share with a friend. Welcome to Living Well, where we attend to the mind, the heart, the body, and the soul. We are smack dab in our series on Black love, Christian style. Hey, now are you over 50? Is your mama or your daddy over 50? Is somebody in your life over 50 and you looking and you saying, I know what's missing, a companion? Well, if so, this episode is for you. Today, we're gonna talk about 50 plus and dating. How to find a companion out there in this new modern dating pool. So we want you to sit back, relax, get a pen and a paper because you don't wanna miss it. Let's learn how to find Black love, Christian style, over 50. Stay tuned. So you know what time it is. It is time for the water cooler, where we come out of our psychologist offices, stand around the water cooler, talk about a hot topic, what other folks are talking about, or what people need to be talking about. So today we have a great video about dating over 50 for you. So let's take a watch and then we'll come back and talk about it.
At one of my favorite places on the lake today. But earlier today, I saw a post about dating 50, 60, 70, beyond, or 40. And I thought that if someone is listening to this, I hope they have common sense, because what they were talking about did not make any sense. And some of the information people put out is informative and, it's good information. But I think, and I'm not an expert, but I think we take dating out of context of what it should be. It should be about meeting, communicating, talking, laughing, having fun, getting to know a person or people. We come with expectations, and the expectations kind of knock out really what the dating should be about. And when I say expectations, I'm thinking about physical or emotional expectations before we even get to really know a person. So my thing is, take your time, get to know a person, start to enjoy them before you break down what they should or shouldn't be or what you want. The premise of dating is to have fun. You don't have to marry everyone that you date, and you don't have to have sex with everyone that you date. So just take your time.
Sis had some interesting things to say.
Yes, she did. There you have it. I like the fact that, she starts out, well, let's just hope folks listening have some common sense. So you know what makes sense to you. Like, we don't have to complicate this.
Well, you know what the old folks say. Common sense ain't common.
Well.
So we have to manage. She said manage expectations.
Yes.
I want to manage expectations
around common sense. Right.
Common sense. We pray that folks have common sense, but sometimes
it's missing. But I like what she said. Dating, it really doesn't have to be that complicated.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
We're supposed to have fun with it. Mm-hmm. Just go and have fun and try to get to know a person.
Getting to know. And that's why I think sometimes people get confused and they get so wrapped up into I'm dating and it has to lead to X.
Right.
I'm dating, we're going out, and it has, so they're so worried about or fixated on what's going to happen in the future that they can't enjoy the present. Mm-hmm. Just getting to know someone, the person who you've met. And the danger of that is you could get so wrapped up in what you fantasize it to be that you can overlook or miss what it actually is.
Absolutely. You know, I think about in our conversation regarding your book, you know, Dating with Purpose. It's like, okay, you coming in and you already got yourself married and you got the kids planned and all of that, and you don't even know who's in front of you. You haven't even stopped to question whether or not this individual wants to have kids. And it's like we move so fast, so far down the road, and even that can be dangerous because you don't know who's in front of you.
Exactly. And I think when we talk about dating over 50, some of the unique aspects that could be there are pluses and there are minuses to dating over 50. And one of those might be if you had been in a relationship for the bulk of your adult life and for whatever reason you found yourself single again, you know, widowhood, divorce or something like that, you might be kind of out of practice.
Right.
And so you might jump into dating and have these, as she said, these expectations that this person is going to replace everything that you lost.
Right.
And so you might jump into it feet first, and you might not know some of the ways that the dating scene has changed.
So true.
Since you've been single.
That's true.
Right.
And especially, let's not forget those who you probably never even knew how to date to begin with.
Yes.
And so now they find themselves over 50 and need to learn how to date, hence dating with purpose. And I think for me, that was the takeaway as I listened to her. It's like, okay, you got to learn how to do this thing. Because when we know what the messages are sometimes, what's the saying? Like, you know, oh, it's not okay for women to learn how to date. If they date more than one person, then there's a label attached to them. And what she's saying is have a good time. You ain't got to marry everybody you date, and you don't have to sleep with everybody you date.
Please don't.
Yeah,
Please don't.
Exactly.
Don't sleep with people.
Because that's dangerous.
That's dangerous.
Yes.
For many reasons. And you're not called to do that. This is a vessel. Protect your vessel.
Yes.
You protect it if nobody else does.
Exactly.
But I think that also goes to, like she said, manage your expectations. And I would add, manage your expectation and assumptions, your expectations and assumptions. Sometimes we believe that, oh, this person is over 50, so they got all the games out of their system. They got all the playing out of their system. They have wisdom. That's not always true.
That's
not always
all.
true. I mean, you know, I know we're a faith-based show, but can I say sometimes as an old fool? Can I say that?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Because that's the truth.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just
we need
saying
to speak the
sometimes,
truth.
right, you be run up on an old fool, male or female.
Exactly.
So we can't get caught up in you're 50, so you should know better.
Absolutely. Yeah, that you're absolutely right. And because again, I'll go back to how dangerous that can be. Hence why it's so important to just get to know somebody. See what they're about. You know, have fun, have coffee, go grab a bite to eat, meet in the park and walk, feed the birds, whatever they do. They feed the birds.
They feed the birds.
Okay, they feed the birds, you know, whatever that may be. But I like that. She's use a little bit of common sense and think about how to do this thing, because there is a way to do it, and it should be. It should just be fun.
And I think one of the most important things for us to remember is you can still have a full, budding love life, dating life over 50.
Absolutely.
It does not have to stop.
Absolutely.
You just have to have the tools to do it well, to do it in a way that you are getting what you feel that you need or that you desire to have out of your life.
Absolutely.
But
I
life
would
is
agree.
not over after 50.
Not at all.
At
In
all.
fact, for some, it's just getting started.
For some, it's just getting started. You know what? With that, I think it's time for us to stop. We're going to take a moment. We're going to bring in our very special guest who works with couples all the time. We're going to bring in Mr. Sivan Parchman as soon as we come back. And now we are joined by our wonderful guest, Mr. Sivan Parchman. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Let me see if I can run down for the people just a list of your accolades right quick. You are a musician extraordinaire. You are part of the music ministry at Faithful Central Bible Church in Inglewood, California.
Yes.
Not to mention all of your other musical successes outside of the church. Also know that you and your wonderful wife, we can't leave her out, even though she's not here.
Yes.
You've been married for going on almost just a hair short of 34 years.
Yes.
And you have parented a beautiful daughter. And in your work at the church, you and your wife have used the lessons that you've learned and the successes that you've had in order to facilitate small groups at Faithful Central for couples, to
Yes.
teach them tools on how to have healthy, successful, long-lasting marriages. So you are and have been a busy man.
Yes.
So thank you so much for taking out some time to be with us on Living Well.
Thank you for having me. I am truly honored. Nervous a little bit at the same time, but thank you again for the invitation.
No, nothing to be nervous about. It's just Eric and Niecy.
Doctor. Okay, so.
Well, thank you. We're going to try to make it easy. We're going to try to make it light. So just starting off with piggybacking on what I just mentioned about you. You've been married for 34 years. Today, we're talking about dating after 50. So how does being married for 34 years, being in that relationship for a huge part of your life, how does that connect to now want to get into helping people to date or knowing how to date after 50?
You know, for me, been doing this for a long time. However, I've been witnessing a need over the years. Proportionately, there are, I think, almost 10 women to every man. And as a result of that, there are a lot of lonely people out here. And so let me clarify. There's a difference between being single and being alone. There are people that are single that are very comfortable. But I know there are other people that are single and alone. And the reason I chose the 50 and over market is because the needs and wants are different than they are when you're in your 20s and your 30s. In your teens and your 20s, you're thinking about your careers, you're thinking about children. You know, usually if you're 30, you probably have children and you're putting them through school. You know, the 40s is trying to break the glass ceiling. But when you get 50, there's a different dynamic, a different interaction. And it's the conversation that people don't have, but they should have. And I think that's kind of been the void with people establishing relationships. So several years ago, and you were a part of this, a good friend of mine, along with Miss Ronecia Lark, a friend of hers, we're friends with her and Terry. We had a plan of wanting to do something for singles. And it was called 50 Plus Single, Ready to Mingle. And the reason I said that is because you look at everything that the media caters to. They cater to the young, or they cater to the mid-20s and 30s, right? But they're forgetting about the proportionate of, I don't know, what are we, baby boomers? I guess we would fall in that category. Where exponentially, we have more money. We're pretty settled. A lot of them over 50 aren't trying to have kids. And the needs are different. So what I wanted to do was create a safe environment where they could come together and share their likes and their desires without being judged, but also know that there's hope, because everyone always assumes that when you're hooking someone up, you're trying to hook them up for marriage. And that's not always the case. A lot of times people just want company. So that's how it came about.
Oh, okay.
You mentioned about, what happens in our 20s and 30s or 40s, but I'm wondering if you can talk specifically about, like, when you're trying to navigate dating, what's the difference in trying to date when you're under 50 versus over 50?
Good, you asked a good question. First off, dating under 50, when those that are dating, there is usually a desire of wanting to amass certain things. Whether it be property, whether it be physical things, whether it be children, whether it be degrees, you go out to different places at those ages, right? Whereas when it comes to 50s, you're usually pretty settled. And I always try to encourage people, especially in this age group, be intentional about what you want. The 30s and 40-year-olds are still kind of skating on ice because they don't want to offend someone, or they're afraid that if they express what their desires are, that it's going to run someone away. 50, when we get to that point, it's like, this is what I want. I'm not settling for less. So often people in their 20s and 30s have compromised their feelings and emotions for someone else, and they regret it later on because they feel like they've denied who they are. When you get to 50, we're like, I can't say what I want to say, but you know, you get to that point where it's like, I'm not going to settle just for something, because the reality is we have less time to live than we do when we were in our 20s and 30s. So we want to be intentional and make sure we make good of the years that we do have left.
So when you get into your 50s, oftentimes there's more time behind you than ahead of you.
Yes.
And who wants to waste that time, right? It makes sense. I get it. So I'm you know, as I'm thinking about this, and we can talk about the challenges of dating over 50 all day long. We talk about that all day
Right.
long.
Right.
But I'm going to assume that there's some benefits to also dating over 50. Like there's some things that are.
There are, and I'll expound on them. First off, most people, I'm not saying, I don't want to generalize this, but most people over 50 have some type of retirement or pension or 401 in place, right? Whereby when you're younger, either, especially now, because most companies don't offer those things like they used to, especially when it comes to pension. By the way, so I retired in 2020
Oh, congratulations.
after 38 years in corporate America.
Wow.
But with that, I was around people and I learned how to invest and save up. So most people in that age range are pretty stable. They either have a house, they have some residual income that's coming in, and their wants of amassing material things aren't as much as it is when you're younger, because you don't feel like you have to have a new car, you got to go shopping every week, or you got to be seen with the greatest and the latest. You know, you become a little bit more content, not that you're settling, but your needs are different. I mean, I know Kim and I are at this point where we're doing a lot of house cleaning. I mean, stuff that we've amassed and it's cluttered, and it's like, okay, we're not hoarders, but you know, we're kind of borderline with this stuff right now. You just look at life differently, and you want to be intentional. And I have some notes that I'll talk about. But 50 is silver, and it's a changing of mindset, whereby when you're 50, you're more patient. You're less likely to jump at something based on your emotions because you think about it more. Because when you're younger, we have no conscience of, or we're not really cognizant of our reaction, because everything that we do is just based on an emotion without thought. And when you're 50, there's a kind of that sage mentality of not only listening, but imparting wisdom as opposed to anger.
Yeah, I can see that. And I'll also say, in some ways, that's best case scenario.
Yeah.
Because the prayer would be that as we grow in chronological age, we also mature. We learn from our past experiences. We are able to work through some of our past hurts or traumas or different things that have happened. We're able to learn from them. And then, you know, we have something to give back to the next generation. That is the desire.
Right.
We also have to acknowledge that not everybody grows in wisdom, sadly, Lord. Right. But prayerfully, over 50, you are bringing that wisdom into a relationship. Or if you're dating, like you said, not everyone who's over 50 is looking to get married.
Right.
In parentheses again, because many have been. They might just be looking for companionship, someone to travel with, someone to get a church with, someone to go out to dinner occasionally with. So not everybody is looking for that. And they might be at a different point in their lives. I would also assume that oftentimes over 50, most people aren't still parenting. So you have some of the freedoms that you don't have during those parenting years, 20, 30s, and 40s or so, for example. So you have some freedoms where your time is not as tight, right? As it is when you're younger. And I agree with you. I think, again, this is best case scenario, people. We know that there are people who fall outside of these boundaries, but hopefully by 50, you're more financially stable.
Yeah.
So you can do things.
You may have some type of disposable income.
Yeah.
Whereby you're not working just to pay bills.
Yes.
you know, or at least you set something aside, you know, and that's the thing. I mean, like you're saying, as parents, Kim and I spent money sending Tia to private school. And then, you know, then she went to Howard, HU. But with that said, after she graduated, that money that was sent in was now used for savings and to do other things. That 50-year-old set that you're talking about, and so let me also speak, and I'm speaking for the men, there's usually a 5 to 10 year difference between a woman's maturity and a man's maturity.
Yeah, I've heard that.
And that's because, and allow me to explain, when men are born, we're born to go after any and everything that we can. We're about conquering. It's not about loving or caring or anything like that, because society doesn't do that. If you think about it, society tells you get as many women as you can, amass as much material things as you can, let it be all about you. So sometimes it takes us a little bit longer to get to that stage whereby we have to become selfless. And I learned, say maybe in my 40s, where for me to grow as a husband, Kim's needs had to become my wants. And that's when you know you're making that transitional change, because usually it's all about yourself. So, you know, in being 50, and so I'll admit, I'm 60 now. We'll be 61 in September, and Kim is 62. But we've spent over half of our lives together. But we've seen ourselves grow as couples. But I've also seen single people do the same thing, and I've seen some people try to reverse the cycle. So, you know, it's a catch-22 at times, but it all depends on what you want. So what I did was I wanted to give some tools just for dating in 50. So first, figure out what you want. Think about what you want before you start the process. As you're seeking a long-term relationship, a casual one or simple one, what quantities or qualities are important to you? The other, don't stress over your past. We all have a past, but the problem is sometimes people, and I learned this the other day, there's something called trauma bonding. I didn't know about that, whereby you'll get sucked into someone's trauma, and before you know it, you have actually taken on that role with them. I'm not saying a past is important, because the past is really important in understanding the root of situations when you're in a relationship, but don't dwell on that or make that the sole focus of your relationship. The other was find someone who can add to your life. So often, you know, you'll have people that are trying to take from you as opposed to adding to your life. So you're basically saying, I don't need someone to complete me, because I'm whole as I am. God has made me that. But there's certain things that I like doing. We talk about going out, doing different things, you know, smiling. After 50, be more intentional and less coy about what you want in life. Intentional means having the ability to see specific results in the future that, if you achieve them, will make things bigger and better for your life. So when you're looking at someone, whatever your goal is, if that's to have a companion or be a husband, be intentional about that. Be deliberate in your day-to-day activities. If I'm calling you on a regular basis, be reciprocal in that, or at least acknowledge that. So we're dealing with a different paradigm of relationships right now. So you have this thing called ghosting. I didn't know about ghosting. So in case you guys don't know, ghosting is you just disappear from dating someone. They don't know why or where or what's going on. But I learned another. Have you guys heard of breadcrumbing?
No, I haven't heard of that, but that makes sense. It's where you do just enough.
You know, exactly. Yeah, that's so. 8 years ago, I started writing a book. Matter of fact, Nisi and I were talking about it. It's called I Pledge Allegiance to the Red Flags, the Warning Signs of Dating. I'm glad I didn't put it out, because I would have had to add 20 revisions, because this whole technology and dating thing now is different with the catfishing and everything else that's going on. But there's a plus to dating online as well. It just depends on what site you go to. And I have a list of some sites we can talk about. Be clear on the results you want. You can increase your intentionality by getting clarity on the measurable results you want to achieve in the future. When you're clear on those results, you want and understand the importance of achieving those results will be more intentional. Be purposeful with your time. I always said we got less time than we had before. Make that time count when you're with that person. And if that person is in your space, make sure you're quantifying that time in a meaningful way, no matter if it's just having coffee, if it's holding hands or sitting, you know, I mean, what do they call that? Chilling, Netflix,
Netflix
chill. Yeah, Netflix and chill. And we all learned about that during the pandemic. But with things like that, you want to make sure, become focused on who you're with. If you're with someone, talk about your goals. It doesn't mean that you're trying to get married, but say what your intentions are.
Yeah.
So often we get into relationships and we're afraid to express what our goals are and thinking that it's going to turn someone off. But we're not mind readers, and neither are you. So we're at this age, we shouldn't be playing games. Let's say what we want.
Right.
Lastly, be mindful of your most important relationships. Whoever comes into your life should know who in your life plays an important role, and to the point where there's no compromising with that. Now, and we talked about having kids. Sometimes you have to weigh if you have children and that other person doesn't have a child or children, how that could possibly affect when it comes to making decisions on your kids. Because I've seen cases where the mother or the father wanted to do something for their daughter, and the girlfriend was adamant about it because why are you doing all this for them? And so I think the dynamics work a little bit better when there are children involved on both sides, but sometimes it doesn't happen. I mean, case in point, Miss Lark, the way that she has navigated the relationship with her and Terry, no matter what was going on, she stood steadfast and not made him feel less, but did not make him feel like he had to make a choice. And I think those are the things when dating we have to be mindful of. Certain pressures can push people away, and there are pressure points that you have to know when to touch and when not to touch. So for me, with the dating thing for people over 50, I think it's a great time because you have less to worry about, and you should be more freely open to talk about what you want. So,
thank you so much for those helpful tips. I think it's always great to give people who are viewing like some tangible strategies or things to think about as they're moving forward and going into this dating space. So I really appreciate that, and I think people need to hear that because given the divorce rate and the never married rate, there are a lot of people who are over 50 who are looking to date or looking for some companionship and to meet individuals. Now, I do just tangibly, where does someone start if they're over 50 and they're looking to date, they're looking for companionship? Because I think a lot of, folks over 50 don't know even where to start.
all right, so we have the internet, right? But before we had the internet, we had the people net. All right? And it's really about your circle of friends. If you do have a circle of friends, usually we all know someone, and especially living in LA, as big as LA is, you're more than likely at the age of 50 and over to run into somebody, if you're even thinking about dating, that knows somebody that you know. So instead of it being reversed, why not inquire through your circle of friends? Hey, anybody, and not in a desperate sense, but when people know your needs, like, hey, be on the lookout if you such and such. I'm not trying to do blah, blah. I just want to go out, because they can set the tempo in making those arrangements. Also, online dating is not a bad thing, but you have to know which sites to go to. So I wrote a couple down. One is called S'more, and basically more means something more other than some of the other ones that are out there. It's more for adults, and the process that they use, I think, is encouraging because it's not based on superficial viewing of one's looks. It pretty much gives you a description, and the screen is kind of blurred.
Oh, wow.
And it waits after a couple of times. So you have S'more, it's called s'moreapp.com, Senior Match, eHarmony, Christian Singles, Singles 50, OkCupid, Elite Singles, Christian Mingles.
Okay.
Yeah, so those are some of the sites that people can go to. I would say, I'm an only child, so I don't have a problem going out. And I know we want to talk about safety, but break your routine. Instead of going home the same way you normally go home, take a different route. If you work out at a particular park, maybe go work out at another park. If you go to the gym, instead of starting off like I do, I'm always on the treadmill, right? But break the monotony. Start with the lifting, go with the weights, or wait a different time because there's a different crowd. You have to put yourself in position to see different people, to do different things.
Yeah.
And, even if it means going out to eat, sometimes to a restaurant, it's always that curiosity factor of, wow, why is she over there? You know, I mean, you never know. It can spark that type of interest. So
That's good. I think you have given some really, really valuable tips for those who want to date. And what I'm hearing you say is that more than anything, I continue to hear this message about being intentional, especially for those over 50, being intentional, knowing what you want and putting yourself out there.
Yes.
Because, you know, how else are you going to meet somebody or even, you know, be open to meeting somebody? And especially because I also heard you say that dating for people over 50 is not always about marriage, but more so about companionship.
Yes.
And so that's important to keep in mind because you're not trying to marry everybody you date.
no, and I mean, I don't know if we can we mention sex on this show?
Well, people have it.
Okay. And I say that because we're now living in a society where it used to be taboo for a woman to express her desires and her needs and her wants. And I think that's so important because if you're in a relationship, if married or and I'm not condoning, you know, but I'm saying if you're in a relationship, I believe both needs should be met. And a lot of times in the archaic way, a woman would go or would leave unsatisfied and had desires, but was afraid to express them because she was viewed as something different than what she is. Those needs are as real as anything, and they're necessary because I believe there's sex has there's a language of communication with sex. And if you don't convey that to me and you walk away unsatisfied, I feel like a disservice has been done. You know, so even in dating, talking about what you like, what you don't like, you know, don't leave anything on the table. Express those because we're adults and we should be able to handle that. So,
And if you can't, you probably shouldn't be dating.
yeah.
You need to get a little help before you get out there because that's how you wind up in a situation where that you didn't want to be in, or you're at the will of somebody else. If you're not able to talk about these things that were historically taboo or that are hard subjects, then you need to get a little help before you go out in that pool because there are sharks in the pool and there's pee in the pool too.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that we are well equipped.
I use that, you know. I use that. But no, you're right about that. And that was one of the things that we really talked about in our Love and Respect, a small group. We were talking about being able to communicate with our mate. Communication will always be the key variable for everything. There are three things that will mess up a relationship, and especially marriage: sex, communication, and money. When the money is funny, ain't no honey, and ain't nobody talking. You know what I'm saying? So
No money, no talk.
No, I'm telling you, have you ever seen a two-legged tripod? You have to have that foundation.
Right. Yeah.
So it's kind of taking those tools, and they're applicable whether they're in a marriage or whether it's in dating or even in life, but understanding how to convey those thoughts intelligently enough whereby the person that you're conveying it to receives it and then wants to appease you by doing those things. So.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I mean, we could talk about this all day, but I think our time has wound down.
Wow.
I know. Didn't I see you said you was nervous? You wasn't nervous. You wasn't nervous, Mr. Sivan. You done came with it. No money, no honey, no talking.
Put that on a t-shirt.
Exactly. So we really,
brand that now.
right? We really appreciate you being here. We appreciate all the wisdom that you've brought. Hopefully you and your partner will, I don't know if you've started your over 50 and single and ready to mingle. What's it called?
50 and single, ready to mingle.
Hopefully.
50 plus single, right?
50, yeah.
50 plus single, ready to mingle. There's a Facebook group. It was closed because it started during the pandemic. Matter of fact, so for those of you who don't know, when this idea came to me, I purposely made an appointment with Dr. Holmes, and she had written this book, Dating with Purpose. Please pick it up if you haven't. She did us a pro bono favor and gave us advice. I'm sure on the back end I'll have to take care of her. But no, we want to start it, maybe sometime, if not this year, well, maybe the end of the year, because we want to make sure we have everything in place. But COVID kind of shot a lot of that down. But the goal is still the same.
I love it. Is the Facebook group back open or no? Not yet.
It will be open in April. I'm making some modifications now with some, since Meta is now, they
Right.
changed the name, there's certain guidelines and wording we have to change. But once that's taken care of, we will be open again. So.
Well, as you know, we always like to leave you with a resource, and I think Mr. Sivan has just given you a resource. So look for that Facebook page, 50 plus single and ready to mingle. Look for that resource page. Of course, you can always pick up Dating with Purpose, a single woman's guide to escaping no man's land. We thank you for joining us. And with that, until we see you again, we pray that you are living well. For more information and resources, be sure to check us out at normalizehelp.org. And you can always email us at livingwell@faithfamily.org to get a question answered or to tell us a story. You never know, your question might make it to air or be the subject of one of our episodes. See you next week.
It's not too late to change, it's time to be the change. It's time to shine that light that lives in you. It's not too late to change, now it's time to change. Now it's time to change, now it's time to change. Now it's time to change, time to change, time to change, time to change.